Hello, everyone.
Hi, it's Miracle Mom and Michael.
Mom has no idea what's coming now. She almost never does. I don't tell her. Well, sometimes I tell her ahead of time. All right, Mom.
Oh, do you have a script in front of you?
I made a list. Sometimes I make a list, sometimes I don't.
Oh,
But I'm
okay.
because I'm trying to, get a bunch of segments in one phone
Right.
call because I got stuff to do. I got this whole other channel that's
Yeah,
taking all my time. All right.
I know.
So, Mom doesn't know what's coming, and neither do you, the viewer. Actually, you do because you clicked on the link and I already named it something, so you kind of got an idea what's coming. But before we get into that topic, Mom is still waiting with bated breath. She has no idea. Um, Thank you for watching. I want to do this every now and then. Just thank you. There's every one of our videos is getting viewed by someone other than Mom. Uh, Sometimes it's Michelle. Hi, Michelle, and maybe Phil and other people, and it's certainly some of Mom's friends. And I'm grateful that you're watching. If you find my mom and my conversation and relationship interesting, enlightening, entertaining, sad, I don't know, whatever is keeping you watching, thank you. And share it if you care to. And I know some of you have already subscribed, but subscribe. Everybody else who's going to watch this that hasn't, subscribe and click the bell to be notified and share and like and etc. Okay. All right, Mom. Have you ever heard of the phrase irreducible complexity?
Oh, no. No, no.
You've never heard the phrase?
No.
Oh, okay, good. I get to educate Mom. I get to educate Mom a little bit. So your son here actually knows a few things that you don't know. Wow.
No, I don't doubt that.
All right. Well, it's a pretty simple concept. Irreducible complexity. I mean, I don't have a clinical definition, but an example. Here's a perfect example. A sentence is irreducibly complex. Uh, it has things that it. There are things that make up a sentence that if they weren't a part of it, it wouldn't be a sentence. In other words, it has a structure, and there are complex structures within that structure, like words, letters, meaning, right? So
Right.
if you take the subject out of a sentence, it's no longer a sentence, right?
Right.
And then you have to have a verb, or it's no longer.
Right.
So a sentence itself is irreducibly complex. You can't get any simpler, and for it to still be a sentence. Now that I kind of butchered that explanation, but irreducibly complex structures are evidence of intelligence, right? I mean, doesn't a sentence doesn't mean anything to a lizard,
Right.
right? Or a dog, unless it's down, Fido.
Okay.
I guess even in that, there's the subject and the verb, the command, but uh, what has been determined scientifically, uh, and is proven out more and more so every day, is the irreducibly complex nature of biological life. There are systems that cannot and could never function or even come into existence without already extremely complex structures in place. And
Right.
it runs counter to everything scientists were pursuing up until and soon after the day of Darwin, right? That it's a gradual, uh, you know, things move from simple forms to more complex forms. That's what Darwinian evolution says, that first there was non-life, They were just rocks and some kind of soup and electricity and different chemicals. Chemicals are they have complexity, but they're far less complex than biological molecules. And so over time, these soup somehow gets zapped and forms a more complex structure, and then amino acids form and kind of assemble together somehow, and then they form uh, ribonucleic acid or RNA, and then the RNA becomes DNA, and the RNA is still there, and then the DNA, and then there's the single cell organism. And Darwin didn't have an electron microscope. It was revolutionary when scientists saw how vastly complex the molecular world is. Before that,
Right.
they just thought, oh, germs. There's germs, these things that creep and crawl, and and there's simple life, and then they lead to more complex life because of the environment acting upon them. The fact of the matter is, a single cell, if you magnified a single cell to the size of a city and looked at it, it would actually be a much more efficient city, because
Right.
a cell looks like a city. It looks like trucks driving around hauling material to locations where that material is then taken and built into structures. And then
Right.
and it's like, wait, there's not a person in that cell. It's just designed to do that. And well, and I just slipped. It was a slip of the tongue, right? I said designed, right?
Yeah.
Evolutionary biologists and molecular biologists, they use that terminology all the time. They may preface it with seem to be designed, but they can't escape the terminology of purpose and meaning and usefulness and efficiency and design when examining the fundamental building blocks of life.
It's not that they can't escape it, they just don't want to admit.
There's no other word to use.
That there's a creator. They don't want to admit it.
What's fascinating, and so I had this epiphany. I mean, it seems it's almost, I don't even like to use that terminology. Like it's like I had this epiphany or I had this idea. I prefer the idea occurred to me. Right? We use that language all the time. Did 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 this idea originate from me, or did it come from somewhere else and I'm just the receptor that happened to latch onto it? And I think that's more accurate. Like even in the arts, artists will say, I didn't create this. It was out there. I could see it and I just fashioned it. And so the idea occurred to me that the pursuit of knowledge is only really pursued by an infinitesimal part of the population, right? Those scientists and philosophers, put them in that category as well. Scientists and philosophers that are examining, basically, they stand on the shoulders of generations of those who preceded them, right? A scientist doesn't come with a blank slate and say, oh, look, there's a world out there and there's these living things. Let me try and figure it all out. No, they research and read and study, and all of these discoveries that have happened over the centuries, over the millennia, they they assess it, they assemble it, they assimilate it, and they process it, and they make new discoveries. And those at the cutting edge, the forefront of scientific inquiry and philosophical implications. Like it goes hand in hand. Science can't exist without philosophy, because scientists just know they're supposed to report accurately, right? A scientist is supposed to be honest and truthful about his discoveries, but honesty and truthfulness are not scientific facts, they're philosophical principles. Okay, so science and philosophy go hand in hand. And those that are at the forefront of, especially not not just molecular biology or uh, you know, looking at atoms, which is, but those who are also astrophysicists looking at the big scope, those at the forefront of these fields of science, they're having more and more difficulty reconciling with atheism and Darwinian evolution and methodological naturalism. It's so the philosophical implications. So that, sure, there's plenty of atheist scientists out there or scientists of other religions or whatever, but the facts are actually pointing to intelligence, that intention, that all of this is for a reason, that every cell in your body was pre-programmed from the
Right.
from the DNA molecule. And that's, I want to wrap this up because I know I'm preaching to the choir here. I know you didn't know the terminology, but you're you're the choir and I'm preaching to you. You get it and you understand it and you agree. But the DNA molecule, I just wanted to say this to wrap this up. I started with the irreducible complexity of a single sentence. What scientists are realizing is that the DNA molecule is a sentence. It has all the same components. It is written. It's not something that could have ever happened by accident. It it was
Right.
intended. Everything about you, the person listening to this, watching this, was intended by someone. And
Right.
we'll leave it there.